So Alexander Pruss has put forward an argument not against but for the possibility of the existence of an actual infinite that rests on an analogy of metaphysical potential between two kinds of entities. So to illustrate what Pruss has in mind, suppose there is an alpha widget, and what it does by the time it first exists is it plays the violin, say for a year, and only then makes a copy of itself during, say again, a year. The copy then plays the violin for, again, a year, but then proceeds to copy itself during half of the time span of the first widget. The third alpha widget then plays the violin for a year before copying itself in, again, half the time of its preceding widget, and so on and so on and so forth. So let's quickly formalize the sequential procedure here. A. Alpha widget n spends some time t performing x before copying itself, creating alpha widget n plus 1 during the time span m. B. Alpha widget n plus 1 spent some time t performing x before copying itself, creating alpha widget n plus 2 during m half. Now, at what times do alpha widgets come into existence then? So, if t is 1 year and m is equally 1 year, we would have alpha widget n comes into existence at t equals 0, alpha widget n plus 1 comes into existence at t equals 1.5, and alpha widget n plus 2 comes into existence at t equals 2.75. Now, since there's always a full year of violin play between the procedures of self-copying of the respective widgets, the series doesn't converge. The number of alpha widgets is always finite and only potentially infinite, and so alpha widgets should be metaphysically possible. They don't violate any foundational metaphysical principles, they don't necessitate an actual infinite, they don't complete a supertask. They simply perform some action, then copy themselves and remain inactive. But now, analogically, think of beta widgets, widgets that do the following. The beta widget does things in reverse order. It does copy itself during some time span, say a year, before playing the violin, producing another beta widget that first copies itself in half the time before playing the violin, and so on and so on and so forth. Now, the 1 year duration during which the widgets play the violin doesn't separate the copying procedures anymore. So let's put it precisely as A. Beta widget n creates beta widget n plus 1 during the time span m before spending some time t performing x. B. Beta widget n plus 1 creates beta widget n plus 2 during m half before spending the time t performing x. Now the relevant times at which beta widgets come into existence are the following. Beta widget n comes into existence at t equals 0. Beta widget n plus 1 comes into existence at t equals 0.5. Beta widget n plus 2 comes into existence at t equals 0.75. So on and so on and so forth. Now here, the beta widget series does converge. And what it does is, it actually gives rise to a super task of creation. And this, of course, means the number of beta widgets is actually infinite after a finite time period, so we have an actual infinite number of beta widgets. But now, is a beta widget therefore metaphysically impossible? Pruss argues that we shouldn't think of it that way, and for very good reason. The only difference between an alpha widget and a beta widget is the sequential order of reproduction and the performing of the violin play. Alpha widgets first play the violin, beta widgets first copy themselves. So they are quite similar actually, almost identical. And what this means is, beta widgets should be just as metaphysically possible as alpha widgets. But if they are equally metaphysically possible, then obviously beta widgets should be possible. Now, let us put this formally. 1. Alpha widgets are metaphysically possible. 2. If alpha widgets are metaphysically possible, beta widgets are metaphysically possible. 3. If beta widgets are metaphysically possible, an actual infinite is possible. 4. Therefore, an actual infinite is possible. Now, of course, one can deny the possibility of an alpha widget, but on what grounds? Well, the copying process seems to be a case of creation ex nihilo, but the theist, of course, wants to affirm the possibility of creation ex nihilo. Other than that, An alpha widget seems to be a causally and more broader, existentially a regular, non-paradoxical entity. So the defender of, say, the Kalam, who wants to hold to the possibility of creation ex nihilo, has a hard time explaining when alpha widget should be metaphysically impossible if he does not want to allow for the existence of an actual infinite.